Bless God, bless America. Thank you.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Morning, board. Today we have a presentation from First Five program here in Yuba County on the program Growing Up Wild, which you funded in the last year. This curriculum program, again, is for pre-K kids, not part of our K through 12 curriculum. And I want to introduce First Five Yuba County.
Hey, good morning, board. My name is Erica Summers. I'm the director for First Five in Yuba County.
And I'm Estefania Lopez. I'm the student intern at First Five.
I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us this opportunity today. Back in spring, First Five wrote this grant, this small grant that really helps to support our vision and mission, which is that all children are healthy, thriving, in safe, nurturing environments and ready to succeed in their educational experiences. First Five works a lot to support quality early education, child social, emotional development, and education in our community. This project has really allowed us to create some more sustainable systems changes in early education. And, it wasn't just a one-time, one-stop project, as training, knowledge, and expertise was given, as you will hear in just a moment, given to early educators in our communities with the tools and resources that they need to provide that ongoing education. I just wanted to take this opportunity right now to say thank you for this the opportunity, and thank you for this partnership, because it has really created a substantial change in child's early education.
So Growing Up Wild is an early childhood education program that builds on children's sense of wonder about nature and invites them to explore the wildlife and the world around them.
You got the slow computers today.
We are having some technical difficulties in the board chambers and the audio is not available.
Maybe I can narrate for you.
Muddy and wet. Oops, gotta shut that off.
That was just a quick video. It's fine. We'll move on.
So Growing Up Wild targets early educators for children ages 3 through 7, and it includes 27 lesson plans, which are all backed by educational standards, age-appropriate practices, and natural resource management. It fosters responsible actions towards wildlife and natural resources. Growing Up Wild also promotes early literacy experiences, creative expressions, and scientific inquiry. We have been providing Growing Up Wild trainings to educators in our community, and so far we have 2 local facilitators trained, which are Rita, Baker, and I, who have been putting on these trainings, and we've held 6 of them at various locations. So far, we've trained 44 providers, which include preschool teachers, childcare providers, family, friends, and neighbors caring for young children. We also were presenters at the Early Childhood Education Conference at Yuba College, where we had 28 early childhood education students attend. And we also provide additional workshops and technical assistance as needed. Every person who participates in these trainings will get this toolkit, which includes materials that can be used to implement into the classroom. So some of the things that we include in there are nature notebooks, dramatic play costumes, fishing kits, storybooks, such as Drop and Adventure Through the Water Cycle, which is all about teaching children what the water cycle is and how it works. We also share activities through social media to families and community, reaching regional partners. This is an example of something we've posted. It's an activity from the curriculum, and it includes the materials, warm-up, and how to go through the activity. And then these are just some of the evaluations that we have received. Some people have said that it gives them the opportunity to implement with their children, grandchildren, and even as a teacher. The curriculum is a great way to encourage children to interact with nature. It helps provide activities to promote outside learning and incorporating that into the classroom. Someone even said that they'll use the guide provided because it's a great way to get children involved in nature and have scientific inquiry. And then this is a picture from the training that we had at Beale Air Force Base. Thank you.
Does the board have any questions for us about the project or ongoing efforts? They still have some trainings ongoing through June, and even some additional trained facilitator trainings that will then take like administrators and be able to, again, pass that training on to their early educators and things like that.
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead.
It's such a wonderful program and you have such a small staff. Just refresh my memory. So children under 5 have their brain development is up to what, 90% by the time they're 5, something like
Got
that?
it, Dawn. Good job. Something stuck, huh? Yes, 90% of a child's brain is developed before the age of 5. So these earliest interactions, this earliest education that children have with either their caregivers, their teacher, their families, other children are so important, so critically important. And that's why how neat this is, because children should be playing, right? We should be playing outdoors. We have such a wonderful geography here in Yuba County. And I really, really think that this curriculum that we're using here in our community will help promote that, help children to engage with the outdoors and nature around them.
Thanks.
Through the chair. In every picture, they're showing children there. They're smiling. They have that sparkle in their eye, and they look like they're having fun. And that's more is needed. Thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question too. So, and you may have said this and I missed it, but do you have a way of tracking how many kids, how many, I'm sorry, I'm not wording it well, but how many kids did we get through to?
Sure. So if you, what the slide said, I mean, I can estimate that real quick for you, just off the top of my head. So if there were 44 providers trained, let's say those are 44 early educators, which is a lot more than that because it goes beyond that with early childhood education students that might use those tools, or family, friend, and neighbors who are like grandparents caring for young children. You took the 44, can't do math very good, but 44, and any of them have between 15 and 20 students in a classroom. So you could imagine that reach. And then, as I mentioned before, some longer term sustainability that's going to happen because these curriculums and these toolkits that these educators receive will remain in the classrooms with them for years to come.
And then additionally, I'd just like to encourage you to keep thinking about more things you could do. And, I think this board would support it. We're interested in expanding on education in the county, and we need partners to do that. So think about ways you can do it and ways we could support it.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yes. I appreciate the partnership with Yuba Water Agency. We're really excited to start this new project.
Is there any public comment on this? Other board members? Well, thank you for the presentation. You guys did a great job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, item 5. Receive update on Power Systems Headquarters project. Matt?
Morning, board. I just wanted to provide an update on how we're doing up there. You guys have probably seen some of the progress, and the agency's been putting some updates on social media. I'm sure everybody's kind of seen some of it, but here I'll present it myself and kind of talk about it. I'm just going to narrate, a handful of slides and videos, and feel free to jump in, ask any questions you have, throughout. Get started. So we started this process with the objective of what you see up here on the board, facilitating the needs of Yuba Water and the agency's personnel to best maintain the Yuba River Development Project by providing a great work environment and support the community presently and into the future. So I'm proud to report that we're on good progress for getting that done. Just a quick reminder, this project is basically relocating most of the staff that we have at Colgate Power Plant, or the original power plant location, which is downstream of New Bullard's Bar. It's off the screen to the right. This is Collins Lake over here on the left of the screen. And I just kind of highlighted Marysville Road, approximately where it's at. So this is going to shorten our commute down to the powerhouse for a majority of our workers. The facility should house somewhere between 35 and 50 employees. Obviously, if we needed to expand in the future, we'll have the property, we could make some more progress out there, but I think we should be good for a long time. So back a few years ago, we started this needs assessment. So my predecessor, Mr. Morgado, he was in the audience, I'm sure most of you know by now. He began working on some of this stuff and took it over. We have been looking for a piece of property. We kind of went down one road over at Halvey Way, which is up there off of Lake Francis Road. Kind of decided that wasn't going to be the right fit for us. So we went back at it, and we identified this property that's right off of Marysville Road, and began the purchase of that property, kind of reworked the permits and everything for it, and got the design rolling. And then last year, about this time last year, we actually completed our bid. So we have a contractor on board that began construction. They really began right around July, the first week of July last year. So we're almost a full year into construction. And we're anticipating that they'll be complete sometime mid to late next year. So just to talk about the actual campus that we're building, I'm calling it a campus. That's kind of an easier way to describe it, I think, for most of the public. So it's a campus for our power systems division. So again, about 50 employees, operations, maintenance, engineering, and support staff that help all of the power systems team work and produce our power and move our water. So with that, we're starting with a new administrative building. So it's about 14,000 square feet of new admin space. Includes the new triple conference room that we're going to build up there. That'll have some public accessibility if the public would like to rent that out. And again, just working space for everybody. A warehouse that we have kind of split in half. Half of that is air conditioned space, and the other half of it is unair conditioned. So we can store our parts and pieces for our projects as they're getting staged and ready. We have a heavy equipment mechanical shop that's going in that kind of has all of the tools necessary, the lifts and cranes and everything that we need to operate all of our equipment. Currently, we try to do as much of that as we can in-house, but this will give us a lot more flexibility in the future. And I'm calling it a barn affectionately. It's basically an outdoor storage building. It's about 300 feet long, 20 feet deep. So it gives us just the opportunity to place some heavy goods that are being received or shipping out, whatever we need to have done. Things moving. A couple of the features I just wanted to talk about is we have a big water tank. This is kind of something that a lot of folks have been interested in. So we have a 150,000 gallon water tank that was installed. The purpose of that is for fire suppression for these buildings. So if there ever were a catastrophic fire in one of the buildings, there's a full fire sprinkler deluge system that'll put the fire out. So that's the main purpose of it. It also gives us a place to kind of move our water up and down for landscaping to keep the trees, growing up there. Let's see, then there's another big feature. It was originally identified in this location. It's a communications tower, and we have actually shifted that just recently. So we're in the progress of moving that up on the top of the hill away from the building, just to simplify some of the installation for the building. One other small feature that's just outside of this scope is a bus stop that's been up there traditionally up off of Marysville Road, and we are reproducing that bus stop and making it ADA and safe for children to come in and out and buses to come from either direction and leave their kids off. It just happens to be a centralized location up in the Dobbins and Organ House neighborhood. Let's see. All right, so now I'll take you through some of the construction videos. So these are just some short flyover clips. These are kind of flashy and fun to watch, but it really shows the progress. So this is when we first started. You can see over here on the left, there's a big excavator with a masticator on the end of it. He's masticating and clearing the land. Unfortunately, we had to clear most of the property so that we could continue to grade it and get it to where we need it moving forward. We'll be re-landscaping it with the appropriate vegetation when we come back, but that is one piece that some folks are concerned with. And here it is completely masticated in August of last year as we were doing rough site grading, getting it all ready for the building pads, getting the drainage basins created. So progress being made. Again, this is last summer. I fast forward to November, and now you can see the building pads are established. We actually have some footings going around the outside. We were getting weather tight, getting some rock down on the site and getting ready for the rainy season. You can see the green in there is from hydro seed inside the drainage basin. Fast forward to March, and you'll see quite a bit of jump in progress here. So now we have buildings that are erected. You can see that we have a roof over the top. The masonry block walls for the warehouse and the shop are basically in heavy progress back in March. And we hadn't even started on building E, that barn down there. And then this is just from last month. And you can see these buildings, the masonry block wall is fully erected. We're working on the steel roofing, and the exterior for the administrative building is being completed. You also see the water tank up here on the top. Maybe I can replay it. The water tank's up here. It's installed on the site, so just everyone knows what that looks like. I just wanted to highlight it. Lots of grading work has been completed. We're most of the way there. The buildings are coming along. Great progress. I have a few more photos from the inside just to kind of show some more recent progress even since then. So the front of the building and the outside, we have siding and insulation that's around the building. Siding is probably about 90% complete right now. Windows are in. It's pretty weather tight for the most part. We're working on gutters and actually putting the final roof deck on the top. The inside, they're starting to fit out the inside. We have, the stud walls are going up. Most of the plumbing's in. We have the fire sprinkler systems the main runs are in. They're working on the HVAC systems. And later on this month, they'll be pouring the finishing slab, the rest of the slab for the concrete inside. Really good progress. You can walk around and start feeling the hallways and the rooms and going along. Here's the warehouse. So I just did a real quick highlight of the outside. You can see the pattern of the block wall, and they're working heavily on the roof right now. There's roof sheeting that's going on. You can see it's just starting here on that left photo, and they're working on. There's a couple of mezzanines. That's why the walls are so tall. So we actually have a second floor for light storage and things like that are going on the inside as well. So those are the two main things that are happening. The warehouse, heavy equipment shops in a similar state. They're working on the roof system and working on the mezzanines. You can see a pile of masonry workers right there that are building one of those interior block walls that'll hold up some of the mezzanines. Just a brief photo. I just try to give a scope of the barn. It's hard to get it in a photo. It's a very long block wall along the back, and the intention there is just to give a wind break and weather break, and also just kind of a visual break from people driving by so that they see what's being stored in there and have the appeal to try to get in there. But it's a very, very long, large building. It's going to give us a lot of flexibility in the future. And again, the water tank over there on the right. My last slide here, I just wanted to talk a little bit about trying to manage the project. So we have Hilbers was the contractor that was awarded the bid last year, and they've been building it as the prime contractor. They have 25 plus subcontractors that are working, on all the different trades to build it. So it's a complicated project. There's a lot for them to navigate and try to sort out. So that's generated quite a bit of work for everybody, trying to get all the submittals in for all the little bells and whistles that we have, specified. And then they have to purchase all these things. Some things have long lead times. So we've already pushed through about 400 submittals, approximately 200 RFIs. That's a request for information. So it's basically a question the contractor might have, whether it's a design issue or just something that they've ran into that they would like some direction. And then about 50 change orders, small change orders. We lump them together and route them internally, but we've had almost 50 change orders. Some of those are small, some of those are credits. Some of those are things that we've asked for. Some of those things are recommendations the contractor or the designer has had. So it's a complex project, obviously, to try to get it this far. Lots of things moving at the same time. I'll just talk about the other logos over here. So PBK is our architect. They manage all of the other engineers that have signed off on the project and the different features. And then to support that, we have testing by NV5, and we have a representative that helps us from the agency's perspective from SR Diversified. So their goal is really just to create a good low maintenance and long lasting project for us. So just kind of a quality assurance. And then finally, I was just going to highlight one of the little pieces that we actually took on. This is the first project we used a software called Project Sites made by Trimble. And that's what's helping me manage all of these pieces of paper. It's basically a paperless job site other than the plan sets that are out there. So it's pretty cool. We have everything already stored. So when the project's done and wrapped up, it's all of it's already there for history and perpetuity. So it's been fun learning all of those things. And it's a pretty challenging project. And I hope that you guys will all take the time to come up and take a look at it. It's in a good spot right now if you want to come look and you kind of feel what it feels like. It's mid-construction. It's sometimes funner to see it in this state than it is to see the finished product. Some people like the finished product, but I think that it's a good time if you guys are interested. So just let me or Willie or any of our staff know if you want to come up, and we'll get you up there for a tour. With that, I'd like to thank everybody else at the agency that helps us. I mean, obviously, I'm just one person up there that's trying to manage this, but it takes everybody to try to make this project run. With that, I know Curtis wanted to talk a little bit about budget stuff, so I'll go ahead and bring him up.
Thanks, Matt, for the update. There is a small action item related to this project update. When there's a project of this size, there's a lot of variables that could stall the project. So getting the schedule dialed in is challenging. And then our fiscal year cutoff is June 30th, right smack dab in the middle of good weather and construction season. So our best guess really was to split the project budget 50-50 in current fiscal year and next fiscal year. But as you've heard, we did not have any significant delays. So the request that is before you guys this morning, as reviewed and recommended by the ABP committee, is to do a budget adjustment for $6 million moved into the current fiscal year to get us through to June 30th. That $6 million will come from next year's budget. So when you guys approved the 2-year budget most recently in December, the $6 million was included in next year's budget. So the $6 million increase is not an increase to the overall project. We're just pulling the money forward so we can continue progress between now and June 30th.
Great. Any questions?
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Looks like you're having too much fun in there. Smiling all the way through that presentation. Congratulations on the success and the speed at which you put something up. You should have a lesson for Caltrans somewhere.
Is there any public comment of the motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the budget transfer from next fiscal year to this fiscal year. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Excellent presentation.
Yeah.
I do drive by it quite often, but thanks for the invite to come in there.
Beware.
Yeah. Item 6, receive update on the South County infrastructure project and give direction for proceeding with developing an interim financial plan. Terry. while you're setting that up, could I ask one question on the last item? Is the water tank full yet and usable for the fire department?
No, not yet. We're still working on, we have the pumps in place, but they're temporary pumps to just support the construction effort. The big pump that we want to use to fill that tank is not on site yet.
Okay.
We do actually have the hydrant system all set up. So those hydrants are actually live right now. So we do have water available, but the tank itself only has about, I think, 8 or 10 inches of water inside. It's just to hold it down.
Okay.
When we fill that, just to be clear, when we fill that, it's going to be filled over time, and it'll get filled one time and it will sit in the tank. It's not going to be something that we're drawing a lot of water off of the load there. So,
Yeah.
no, it's a concern of the load.
Well, will you guys notify Dobbins Oregon House Fire when it's available for use?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks board members for listening to this update. So this morning, we're going to give you an overview of the project, the wastewater and water infrastructure project for the South County. Going to give you an update on the financial status and hopefully get the go-ahead to keep working. Go ahead from you to keep working on this project. First of all, I'd really like to thank the ad hoc committee that I've been working with, Director Bishop, Director Bradford, and Director Vasquez. We've met several times. I really appreciate the time, the guidance, the suggestions that you've given. And thank you for sitting through this presentation numerous times. You could give it yourselves now. I also want to acknowledge, so we're going to go through this. There's a whole bunch of people in the audience today that can answer more technical questions than I could answer. So Simon Gray is with us today. He is our project manager, our Yuba-Waters project manager that's guiding this project. He's from GEI. Kevin Mallon is here, county administrator, of course. From Wheatland, we have Bill Zanoni and Dane Schilling. Oh, and John Tillotson from OPUD is also here to answer all of your questions. I think I have everybody. And Mark Northcross, who's going to be coming up and giving you all the financial details of what we're trying to do here. So, So the purpose of this project is to bring water and wastewater infrastructure to the south of the county. The benefits are to protect the water quality and the groundwater. That's our interest in this project. As I'm sure I've said before, and I'm sure you've heard, Wheatland's wastewater treatment plant is really getting close to end of life. It is built on the wrong side of the levee, and in high water events, there could be some discharge into the Bear River. So it's in everyone's interest to decommission that plant. So we're protecting the groundwater. We're enabling job growth in the commercial and industrial zones. And I just want to be really clear. Those are zones that were in the general plans of the county and the city. We don't have anything to do with land use designations, but it will allow for job growth in those areas. Will it enable expansion in the sports and entertainment zone? That was something the voters approved many years ago, 25 years ago or so. It will enable housing close to Beale to increase military readiness and reduce vehicle miles traveled. As you probably are aware, most of the folks, close to 7,000 folks, both military and civilians that work at Beale, the vast majority do not live in Yuba County. A lot of them live in Placer, some of them in Sutter, but those folks coming up from Placer, this wastewater line will enable more housing for military and civilians that work at Beale, which will in the long run reduce vehicle miles traveled. And it will enable possible Beale wastewater connection for redundancy. As you know, Beale is a strategic asset involved in worldwide operations, and redundancy of all of their systems is really important to them. So our role, Yuba-Waters' role in all of this, is to bring the parties together. It's not our project. but we're bringing all of First Public Utility District, the county, Wheatland. I've even talked to Linda County Water District about this. We have primarily funded the design and engineering. We've also been trying to find funding for the overall project and really get the project ready for construction. And our goal right now is to go into construction next year on phase 1. So, okay, so here's a visual, thank you. Here's a visual on the project for you. You can see in the we've broken the project into 2 phases. Phase 1 is bringing the wastewater from Wheatland so that to allow for the decommissioning of their wastewater treatment plant up to OPUD. So that's the kind of teal color that goes from Wheatland up to OPUD. The purple and teal at the top, that's OPUD, but that's included in phase 1, and that's upgrades to the, not only the connection, but the upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant for OPUD that are needed for phase 1. So, and then phase 2, that line coming down, the purple line that's coming down 40 Mile Road and the water line. So that's bringing water and wastewater infrastructure to the sports and entertainment zone and the southern part of the county. In this configuration, the phase 1, the teal color, is about 130 million in current. We just updated all of the engineering estimates. It's about 130 million. The purple part, it's about 65 million. Those are engineering estimates from 2 years ago that we've increased by 20%. That's probably going to change a little bit, but wanted to give you an estimate on that. This configuration would handle all of Wheatland's current effluent, some of their proposed growth over the next few years, not forever, but probably, this is me, the non-engineer speaking, 10 years. And growth in the sports and entertainment zone. This would also allow, if you'll notice, there's a couple labels on there that says future connection to Linda County Water District. In the long run, and I'm talking 20 years from now, this allows for a connection from the OPUD plant to Linda County Water. So we would truly have a regional system because, as you know, Linda County Water also handles Marysville. And with a larger system, it could be run more efficiently and more effectively as a regional system. Project description in words is the design and engineering pretty much been done. And then that's for the full system to current. It's about $15 million. That was a combined effort from Yuba Water, and ours was the largest chunk of that money going into design and engineering, but also OPUD and OPUD and Wheatland and the county also contributed to that effort. To get to phase 1 bid ready, it's going to take us about $5 million more. And that would include things like finishing final touches on the engineering, right-of-ways, possibly some property purchase, things like that. But the estimate is about $5 million. Phase 1 to Wheatland, as I talked about before, allows the decommissioning of the wastewater treatment plant. It provides for upgrades to the OPUD wastewater treatment plant, allows for growth in both businesses and housing. And the current construction estimates $129,142,000, about $130 million. Phase 2, as I said, that's for primarily the sports and entertainment zone, but the water and wastewater to the rest of the south of the county. 65 million, let's say 65 to 70 million. And in the very long run, it allows for a truly regional wastewater system. So possible funding sources. Please underscore the term possible. I just want to tell you what we've been doing to really scour the earth for possible funding. The first one is that Wheatland and OPUD applied for a State Water Resources Control Board grant specifically for the regionalization of disadvantaged communities. That was about a year and a half ago that was applied for. It started out when they applied for it as, whoa, it's a $130 million project. Yeah, we could fund the whole thing. And then of course, over time that came down to, well, we could fund 90 million and now it's at 50 million, but it seems like a solid 50 million, as solid as it could be when you don't have a signed grant application from the state. But we'll go through where we are on that. So you know exactly how close we are to get that. We're also applying for a DSIP grant, Defense Communities Investment Program. Beal actually asked us to apply for that grant, so we're asking for $10 million. We're working with the Economic Development Corporation with Brenda Stranix on a economic development assistance grant for about $5 million. So we're carving out one element that we can apply for that grant for. Brenda has applied, the EDC has applied for a California Jobs First grant, which actually comes out of the governor's office. It was an effort that was established a couple of years ago. It was initially known as SURF, Communities Economic Resilience Funding. And now it's transitioned to this California Jobs First. The EDC's analysis, last time I talked to her, is that when the whole project is done and we have these lines going down 40 Mile Road, it could create thousands of jobs, as many as 9,000 jobs. And that's what this grant is based on. So we have applied for that. We're asking local sources. So we talked to the city of Wheatland, which has initially said $3 million they're in for. Again, that's, I don't want to put Bill on the spot or anything, but Wheatland is in. We've asked Olivehurst Public Utility District to have skin in the game as well. Developers and anybody responsible for new growth. So developers, even if they're developing business sites, and then and Yuba County. Last one was a suggestion from the ad hoc committee, and that is, could Yuba Water Agency loan $50 million to this project? I want to pause for a second right there. And we're not asking for approval on that loan today. And let me assure you, this would be structured as a loan, not a wink, wink loan. Yeah, we're going to say it's a loan, but you're never going to have to repay it back. This would be the way we could do this, is by investing as an investment in another government agency. And there would be an interest payment. There would be collateral for that loan. And that's one of the things Mark is going to be talking about today. So I talked about that $50 million from the State Water Resources Control Board. Here are the things we've done on that. So those two applications have now been consolidated into one application. Wheatland is the principal applicant and OPUD is the other applicant, supporting applicant, participating applicant. There are many steps that an application has to go through at the state board. The first one was a technical review. We're through with that. We're done with that. It is now an environmental review. Typically, an environmental review takes about 9 months. We've been in almost constant contact with our project manager at the state board, and we've answering their questions. They've met with our engineers and our environmental folks. We're getting them the information they need. And so far, they're still nodding their heads that they could be done with the environmental review about the end of August. The next step is a financial package review. That takes about 60 days. And so we're targeting to get the initial financial package to them, showing the board, this is how it's going to be paid for, and this is how the whole system is going to be run. We get it to them in early July, then that review should be complete about the end of August. And then there's about 2 months, they say, to actually go through legal review and come up with the grant documents and get the grant documents signed. So if I had ruby slippers, I'd be, touching my heels together and say, yes, if all goes well, we could be to bid ready and actually start construction on phase 1 next year. Okay, you guys were supposed to break out and cheer. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark in a sec. But I wanted to give you a heads up of when I say, yes, keep going today, this is what we're asking for. Yuba-Water would be funding that $5 million to get us to bid ready. And then a go ahead on, we could loan this project $50 million so that we can put that financial package together and get it to the state board. We don't have a grant agreement for you today. We're not asking for legal approval of any MOUs or anything like that. But we wanted to get the go-ahead from you. Yes, keep working on this. We have hired for this loan that I said, hey, it's a bona fide loan. We have hired NHA advisors. That's Mark Northcross. He probably looks familiar to you because Mark was responsible for refinancing the Plumas Lake bonds, the levy bonds, and then, dare I say, cleaning up everything that was left over after that and negotiating through the payoff of the builder bonds and basically reducing the property tax assessments for those property tax owners out there by cleaning up all of that debt. And so I'm going to ask Mark to come up and explain to you what his ideas are for how this would be financed. And then we'll open it up to any questions you have. So, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Great to be back in front of this board. I think I'm looking at the new general counsel for the Yuba-Water Agency, whose name I've already forgotten, but nice to meet you. Congratulations. So, key things about the funding plan. 2 phases. We need to get a non-binding handshake agreement in front of the state of California, really by early July. They need that. They've made it clear to us that does not need to be a binding agreement. Okay, that's really good news because there's really, in my opinion, no way we can come up with a binding agreement. So we need to first come up with a non-binding, I'm calling it the handshake. It's in writing, but it's not binding, so it's still a handshake by the end of June. Then before any money actually changes hands, meaning the state is funding the grant and everyone wants to see I'll call it an escrow account where all the money goes into from everybody who's got skin in the game. We are going to have a binding agreement between all the parties, okay? So 2 phases. So from the standpoint of this board, you have a kind of a green light, really soft go ahead today we're asking for. Then at the end of June, we'll be asking you to formally approve the non-binding, I'll call it an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, the handshake. Then, before the end of the year, God willing, we'll be coming back with a binding agreement that really ties people down to how the loan is going to be repaid. So that is the plan. Now I got to press the right button again. Did that. So let's talking about the non-binding funding plan, the handshake we want to come back to you in a month with. OPUD, City of Wheatland, and if there are developers in the game, which I think we all want, we want to have a non-binding MOU with all of these. Maybe it's all the parties combined. Maybe it's, different MOUs for different parties. Don't know yet. Thank God, it's probably the first time your general counsel has heard this. So you're busily taking notes. Thank you, sir. So key terms to be covered by the non-binding MOU, laying out our best intentions for what we're going to do in a binding agreement. Number one is the allocation of cash contributions. As Terry showed, we have a $130 million project. We have this incredible opportunity to get 50 million of it funded by the state. That's of all the grant opportunities. That's the only one that we're really counting on right at the moment. And by the way, if you have questions on that, Bill Zanoni, the city manager of Wheatland, is in regular contact with people at the state, and he can answer those questions. If we don't get that grant, the question is, what are we doing here? Why are we here? So we really are counting on that grant. Well, 50 subtracted from 130 leaves 80 million bucks. Where are we going to come up with that money? That's what we call the local share. And as Terry mentioned, the water agency is the primary funding source. We're looking for that. So what is that going to be? Is it going to be a grant? We're saying no. It's going to be a loan. If it's a loan, how's it going to be repaid? So we're looking to have conceptually, again, non-binding concepts in this MOU. We come back to you in a month that lay out how that loan is going to get repaid. And the collateral we're really looking at here for the loan is you've got treatment plant capacity, you have transmission line capacity when this line is built. How can we use that capacity to be collateral for a loan by the water agency or anybody else who's putting upfront money into this thing? So that is the key consideration. So number one, how are this $80 million in extra costs going to be funded? Best intentions, not binding amongst all the parties. And then if people are putting money into that to fund the 80 million, how's that money going to get repaid in the long run? That's what we're looking at. That's the challenge. So what is the binding plan? What might it look like? Okay. So obviously connections, impact fees, rights to connect to the system is a key element of collateral. Historically, and John Tillison's in the room, can explain this, OPUD's done that on a first come, first served basis. And there were good business reasons for that. From our perspective, the question is that good enough as collateral? Because it essentially first come, first serve, the downside is that it potentially puts the water agency or anybody else advancing money in a competitive position with other development going on, like in Plumas Lake. Is that going to work? Can we, is that acceptable? No answer here today on that, but that's a question that's on the table. Again, as I mentioned, does that result in competition for capacity between Plumas Lake and Wheatland, or AKT for that matter? Another question is, what if the regional board mandates major improvements for OPUD? There is a possibility of that. We've had great help from John's engineers at Jacobs, Steve DeCou on that, and hopefully we can get our arms around that and get that one handled. Then how's it going to be repaid? We did something similar, as you all know quite well, for Plumas Lake, 15 plus years ago. And that was the intent, was to get that repaid by connection fees, solely by connection fees. Well, as we all know, best of intentions and a great business deal done, that didn't work out. we ended up, basically having too onerous a level of impact fee requirements on developers, and development just froze even after the economy recovered. So what are the other options? Well, you have sewer revenue bonds that could be issued by OPUD or the city of Wheatland. That takes it off developers, it puts it on the future homeowners. There's obviously an impact on the future homeowners. On the other hand, there's less of an impact on the developers. So what's the balance there? What's the right balance? Then we have, I think, a very likely possibility, particularly if the AKT development comes through in Wheatland, a Mello-Roos issue, a big Mello-Roos issue, doing lots of things that project needs. The city of Wheatland has formed a Mello-Roos district for another developer that hasn't been acted on yet. So would the Mello-Roos issue repay the Yuba Water Agency or other entities that put money into it? That's a fair question. It's on the table. Like a sewer revenue bond, a Mello-Roos issue is ultimately repaid by the homeowner. And as the directors know, we ended up in Plumas Lake with, in some cases, a really high Mello-Roos tax burden on people. And we don't want that. So we want, again, there's this balance question. And again, not criticizing Plumas Lake, the original deal, in the slightest. We want to learn from what ended up being a mistake. We don't want to repeat it. We want to make sure what we do gets that transmission capacity in place, but doesn't overburden developers or future homeowners out there. And we have, assuming we come back with a handshake agreement that this board approves, we got 6 months to go figure all these other questions out, which will be a heavy lift, but I am confident we can do it. So, numbers. Okay, all these numbers are totally speculative. So these are all wrong numbers, but they're the best wrong numbers we can give this board at this time. So that's sounds a little funny, but that's the best we can do, is give you the very best wrong numbers we can. So again, over in the far right column, 129 million is what we need. Moving over to the far left column, we've got the state Water Resources Control Board, 50 million. That leaves 80 million, or 79 million to be exact. We, in this best wrong numbers scenario, have got 44 million coming out of your pocket in the form of a loan. We've made an ask, again, absolutely no commitment by anybody to that number. 25 million from developers who would benefit. Upfront, skin in the game. That means they would want the collateral they're looking for is ability to connect to the system. Yeah, it's impact fees. Is first come, first served going to work for them? Is it not? We don't know yet. And I don't know if there's anybody from the development community in the room. Anybody else? That was helpful. We, again, an ask to John's group at OPUD, $7 million in cash. An ask to Bill, City of Wheatland, $3 million in cash. So we have no idea, dear directors, whether anything like this will happen. We have no idea, but we want to put our ask on the table. And we're assuming zero for other grants. Terry went through the list of all the other grant apps. We are assuming zero on those. In reality, I think that's a very safe assumption for one key reason. This is for the interim financing plan in the non-binding handshake. We show the state in July. It is very unlikely that we would have final approval on any of those other grant applications by that time. So we feel we need to walk in the door to the state, assuming zero on the other grants. Maybe by the end of the year, we get some good news, but we don't know right now. So that, I think, is that's the approval today. Questions? So I'm going to go back and sit down. We've got hopefully the right people in the room to answer your questions. And God willing, we're back to you in a month with a non-binding handshake agreement.
So there's just two things before I invite others up and open it up to questions. First, I just want to underscore what Mark said about all those grants. We're farthest along with the State Water Resources Control Board. That's why we're pushing for the interim funding plan now. The rest, we don't have yet. We don't know. We'll keep you posted, but if you add up everything out of the 195 million that we need, it comes to 135 million. So I wouldn't put my money on that. The odds are not good that we're going to get all of them. I'm just being really transparent and upfront. And we're continuing to look for grants and we're continuing to negotiate. So in addition to talking to AKT, there's other developers. We're also talking with the tribe to find grants that they have access to that nobody else has access to. I'm looking under every rock for any funding that we can get on this. And the last point I want to make is, and this is just, again, a heads up. It may be easier to manage for that State Water Resources Control Board grant if we formed a JPA for the financing portion of this. That's very initial. And I know even just raising the label of JPA might get somebody's hackles up out there. So for the financing end of it, that we might be coming back to saying, hey, we think this is the way to go. And the management and administration of the grant funding. In the long run, this is just me talking, and I'm talking 20, 25 years from now, when I won't be around to hear all the complaining about it. Sorry, I'm just kidding. There's several of us who think in the long run, that's what we need, an operations JPA. So we truly have a regional wastewater authority, much like in South Placer. And I believe there's one in Sacramento as well. So those are the two things I just wanted to make sure that I'm out stirring stuff up out there. If you hear about it, that's what I'm stirring up. So if we could, does anybody have anything to add?
Good morning. I'm Bill Zanoni, City Manager for City of Wheatland. I don't know that I have anything to add, but I just want to, on behalf of the City of Wheatland, I want to thank you for your interest and support in this project. Up to this point, this project is so important to the City of Wheatland and to this entire region. I've had the pleasure over the past year of working closely with your staff led by this amazing woman, working with Terry as well as Creighton Navla and Jackie Silman pretty much on a weekly basis as part of the team that has been working to keep this project moving forward. We are meeting with our ad hoc committee this afternoon and then going to our council for an update in June. Well, I'm not authorized to make a commitment. I can make an unofficial commitment that we're going to push real hard for our number that was on that screen moving forward. So I just want to thank you today from the City of Wheatland for considering this item. And we look forward to working closely with you as this project becomes a reality. So thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, if I can just ask a quick question. What happens if this project, for whatever reason, doesn't get the 50 million from State Water Resources Board? What happens with your wastewater? Do you guys revamp it? Do you guys have to do, what do you guys do?
Our plant is near the end of its life. So if this project were not to go forward, we would have to go back to square one and I'm assuming pretty much build a new plant. It's outdated. It's really not up to current standards. We haven't been cited, but it is not up to standards. And
the cost for you guys to build the plant is like 50 million or?
Huge.
That's a huge. 250 million. Okay.
Significant.
All
right.
Thank you.
Through the chair, not a question, just some comments that I just wanted to make. As indicated on the benefits slide, this project is critically important for the future of Yuba County, not only for economic development in both the city and the county, but it aligns with important priorities with respect to national defense, with respect to the state's goals to reduce greenhouse gases and reduce VMT, improve quality of life for our residents. So there's significant opportunity for jobs and for checking lots of boxes for the city, the county, the state, the federal government. And so it's very important. I want to thank staff for all their work on this project, the consultants that have been working with staff, and also our partners so far in this effort, the state, the county, the city of Wheatland, OPUD, developers, and from a phase 2 standpoint, Enterprise Rancheria. It takes all of those partners and all that collaboration to move this, massive effort forward. And so I just want to thank everyone involved, and I'm very supportive of us, of the recommendation. So.
I had a question, Terry. You went through that. It was a great presentation, but did you say that when this is done, we'll support like 10 years of Wheatland's expansion? Because it seems like we should be looking like 100 years out in the future.
This project is not going to last 100 years if we have the growth that Wheatland and the county are projecting for the south of the county. It really depends on the absorption rate, on how quickly houses get built by AKT and other developers that are out there. It depends on how fast Enterprise Rancheria implements their new master plan for the sports and entertainment. The 350 acres that they are planning to purchase in the sports and entertainment zone. Okay. I'm going to turn and see if I get head nods on this. I'm hoping this lasts 10 years. And my recommendation would be that really, as soon as we get shovels in the ground on phase 1 and 2, that we start planning for that connection to the Linda County water. And the reason I'm saying that is for those of you who have been around for a while, I'll look at Kevin Mallon on this one. I think the county started talking about the need for a wastewater line in the south of the county about 30 years ago. So we have been working, we started working, when I say we, it was pre-COVID. Remember that. So about 2018, 2019 is when we got real serious and started figuring out how to do the designs and get it done. So once we get the connection to Linda, then it'll last 100 years.
I'd like to clarify, Terry, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but we're not talking about it lasting like it's going to remain in shape and deteriorate in 10 years. It's going to serve the capacity projected for 10 years, and think of it as a phase or component approach. Then additional components need to be constructed. So this will still exist for, probably 100 years or 50 to 100 years, but it will serve the capacity expected. That's what last means.
That was my question. So why aren't we putting in a system that'll take on the entire expansion of the South County if we're doing
I'll let Terry answer that. That was one of the original designs. And from what I understand, it's just super expensive. And you kind of have to take it in steps instead of taking a giant leap. But Terry, you got the detail.
Exactly. And again, from a non-engineering point of view, if you build it for what's going to be needed 50 years from now, you have a whole lot of capacity that's just sitting there not being used for a long time, and that causes problems as well. You guys are teaching me.
Well, it causes engineering problems as well as financial problems.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess if you're going to dig up and put a pipe in that long, will we need to re-dig up and put a bigger pipe in, or will there be other just added things to when there's added, when you add more development than that pipe can handle? Will there be other things down there so you don't have to put a whole new pipe in? I'll give you my way of thinking. My dad built a walnut dryer in the mid-70s, put in electricity. We expanded, had to have PG&E come in and add more electricity. Came to do another expansion, had to add it again, new transformers and everything else. The last time the guy came out, the electrician and the PG&E, they were talking about what we needed to do to upgrade for this one. And he says, he counted everything up and said, we times it by 75% because you're never running everything at one time. And I would sit there and I go, why don't you add everything up, times it by 150%? Because we've done this 3 times in my lifetime. We've been out here, and it went from fairly inexpensive to the last one was like $85,000. So if we plan for everything with the infrastructure, maybe, that's my question is, are you gonna have to dig up that many miles and put a bigger pipe in, or will that pipe handle and we just add more pumping stations or things like that?
I could comment on that too,
Okay.
John, just from our committee meetings, and because I have the same questions. And one comment is that when we need more capacity, they would add a parallel line, and it won't be as difficult because we'll have the right of way.
Okay.
And we'll have pumping stations. Hopefully we can add more pumps or put bigger pumps, or, it won't be nearly as difficult to expand as it is the first time. And then the second comment is, I think I remember the number being 5,000 EDUs that it would handle. Is that right, Dane? 5,500. So if 5,500 EDUs happened in 10 years, that would be the first time I think that happened in 10 years in Yuba County. So I would guess it's quite a few more years than 10 would be my guess. And if it did happen, hopefully at that point, the momentum is there to go ahead and do the expansion that's needed. The financing would be much easier at that point. I have some more questions.
Did you have anything to add to that?
If you're done, John.
No, go ahead. Ask your questions. You'll probably be triggering another question from me.
Dane Schilling's out there, our city engineer from Wheatland. So I think I remember Dane 20 years ago hearing that the Wheatland sewer plant, I don't know who regulates that at the state level, but we were on the verge of heavy fines, and so I don't know at what point that re-emerges as just a really urgent problem, or if it's there and I just don't know about it.
I am Dane Schilling, Wheatland City Engineer, and the answer to that question is that Wheatland's current discharge permit for their wastewater treatment plant is from 1991, and that was when it was last updated. And those typically get updated about every 5 years, or at least examined. We've met with the state several times along the way because that was a concern for Wheatland, that one day we would get whacked to bring it up to current regulations and get our facility out of the river bed and make it in a safe place. And the state basically said, you run a very clean plant. It's very old, but your day will come. Right now we have, tougher problems to solve with different agencies. And so they focused on septic to sewer. They focused on repeat violators. Wheatland's issue is age and discharge to the river. And obviously our discharge right now is percolating groundwater, which is a concern for the agency. But our day will come, and we are doing our best to hold it together. That treatment plant, just for context, also has no redundancy. So if a major component fails, which has in the past, we really have to scramble to keep from an illegal discharge and keep within our regulations. Our permit today would not be issued to any agency under any circumstances in the current regulatory state.
Okay, thanks, Dane. And then the next question I had was, with OPUD, I know there's some money in this project to do some upgrades at the OPUD plant, and I just wondered how urgent that is and how important that is. How does that benefit that district?
Good morning, John Tillotson, General Manager, OPUD. To answer that question, there's right now we're at about half capacity, but we do have a lot of I&I infiltration and inflow from pipes, sewer pipes. That just happens. It's sometimes a little worse due to age, but the required upgrades, they're definitely needed. It's not something that we would be doing right now if we weren't accepting more waste flow from another agency. We wouldn't be doing them.
Okay, thanks. And then a couple of questions for Mark. One is I'm glad AKT was finally mentioned. I know that's the largest known developer, farthest along, I guess, out there, but there are others. So in a situation like this, I think the normal process might be, if there was a large improvement needed in a system, it might be that the developer would fund that up front and then get credit on impact fees for themselves, and then also maybe from other developers as they come along. They may get some of that money back. I'm wondering if, I know there's been discussions, it's in negotiation, too early to really to report what they're ready to do, but I think just based on the numbers that I've seen, that it may take a larger contribution than what would normally be the impact fee per house from AKT. So I'm wondering if they understand that. What's their reaction at this point?
They had the questions on how much capacity will there be after the transmission line is completed, the upgrades that John just talked about are done, and everybody who already owns impact fees that have credits or whatever and haven't turned them in yet, plus Wheatland has connected. Last week, we got numbers from John's engineer, Steve DeCouet Jacobs, on that. And the official number is, I think it was 1.19 MGD, both the transmission line and the treatment plant. Under those assumptions, and John or somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. People in the room can do that. But then the question is, what does that turn to in terms of actual, capacity per EDU, per new dwelling unit? I'm not going to try to answer that question. I've done back of the envelope, but it's a sizable number. Then the next question, we need to get that number to AKT, and so they can look at it. Then the question is, if they're going to advance money, how do they want it evidenced legally? I'll use the term collateral. Their collateral in the capacity of the treatment plant and the transmission line. What does that look like? Is it a credit against the future impact fee? Is it an actual impact fee where you actually own it? All those questions are on the table. They're unresolved. The next step was to get AKT the number, which hopefully everyone signs off on it. We can do that this week. And then we can hear from them. It's like, okay, what's this do for you? What do you want? And if you are going to put money in, which we want you to do, how are we going to collateralize that? What are you going to get for it?
So a comment there and then another question. My comment, I guess, to the rest of the board is that we've had a lot of discussions in the committee about, at least in my opinion, it's critical to get those guys, get some skin in the game out of those guys for this project, because I don't think we want to be seen as subsidizing development. And this project is really important for a lot of reasons, but, you know, development of that ground is one of them. And I don't think we want to be seen that, you know, that we're subsidizing that. So that's my opinion, only not speaking for the rest of the committee there. And then the last question I had, there is, if we loan this money, there's certainly some risk to it. And as I understand it, the real risk is that it would just take longer to get paid back than what we plan on at the beginning. Whatever that plan turns out to be, if development doesn't happen as quickly as projected, which nobody can ever really accurately predict. I mean, of course, it's possible it happens faster and we get paid back sooner, but it's also possible it takes longer. Does that mean, and then we also, as you mentioned, we don't want a situation where interest builds up and then the cost for development increases and becomes impossible. So I guess explain the risks to us better than
Sure, thank you. Great question, Director Bishop. Yes, whether you're getting repaid by impact fees, future sewer revenue bonds, or future yellow roofs, bond proceeds or tax proceeds, all those depend on new development. You know, it's a matter of which, you know, you have three choices. You may be a combination of all three, which was kind of where I would probably go. But all of them are dependent on the pace of future development. If future development does not occur, it blows up like it did after the 2008 meltdown that affected Plumas Lake, your loan's not going to get repaid until it comes back. And the issue at Plumas Lake, we ended up in a situation where whether it was direct interest or it had the same effect as interest, was accumulating. And so the longer development got delayed, the greater, you might say, the liability on the assets of developable property in Plumas Lake became. And that's something we really don't want. But on the other hand, it means from the standpoint of the water agency, the rate of return, the interest rate, if you will, on your loan, to avoid that development risk going out 10 years and having, 5% interest accumulate for 10 years compounded, which is a big number. That means that you're going to basically have a below market rate interest rate on the loan during what I call the development risk period. And so that's a trade-off. And we can quantify that for you. We can present it to you so that you make a good decision on that. Not looking to do that by the end of June, but definitely having that answer in black and white before a binding agreement and any money changes hands on this transaction. So Director Bishop, does that help?
Yes.
In reference to that, I guess future development is the plan, but if Wheatland's on the hook for $250 million wastewater plant anyways, and they would, I assume, to pay for that, if they had to do that tomorrow, they would do some sort of tax or bond on the people who are currently using that plant, right? So there can be a bond or a tax on the people who are currently receiving services that are going to be provided by this, right?
Yes, it would, but and here's the condition on that, Director Fuhrer. I'm looking, there's bills behind you. The population of Wheatland was what, 3,000 or 4,000 people?
3,800.
Shake or nod your heads, help me with that. 3,800, okay, I was close. And the cost of the new treatment plant was a very large number. 250 million. Let's do simple math in our head.
So how would they pay for it currently if they needed to?
In reality, where we're going is that it's not really possible because you'd be looking at the annual debt service and that would be something like $15, $20 million a year. Divide that by 3,800 people.
But they're not going to use buckets. They're not going to use buckets. So what would actually happen?
I don't know. What would happen, my guess, and we've got engineers in the room who can probably better answer this question, is the state is not going to do a cram down that would result in rates going so high that people might just abandon the city. Okay, and that's a real, and they've got this problem, frankly, throughout the Central Valley. You've got all these farm communities in the San Joaquin Valley that need to pay millions to get, potable water that meets good standards. The states could technically legally cram it down on them. They aren't doing that. They're looking for grants and other ways of doing it. So my guess, speculation, sir, is that the state would take the same approach with Wheatland on treatment capacity as they are taking with people who need good water in the San Joaquin.
Through the chair. So just kind of following up on that, as Seth kind of mentioned it earlier and Wayne kind of touched on it a little. And during my previous comments, I didn't talk about the benefit of this project to the existing residents of Wheatland. I really focused on the future of the county and the future of the city. And, based on that 250 million in the population, I did some, back of the napkin kind of math. Worst case scenario, 250 million divided by 3,800 residents, if there was no development and no state grants to help pay for that, is $65,000 per resident. And that's not per household, that's per resident. Even if you had a 40-year interest-free loan, that would, which of course is not reality, that would be over $1,600 per year per resident that would have to be raised to pay that back, and basically an impossibility. And so I would suggest that, that's potentially, to anyone that looks at this and says you're subsidizing development, I think there's a strong argument that we're also, helping support the existing residents in the city of Wheatland through this project, and the importance of that. And that, if this project doesn't happen, certainly I understand that's worst case scenario, probably unlikely for the state to do that. But, it is certainly a possibility. And I think that's important to keep in mind as well.
Good math, Director Bradford. I agree with it. Scary math.
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've used the word development a lot. We have had some people approach us on some rather large commercial development. And then they ask, do we have any power? PG&E. Is PG&E anywhere in any of this conversation about what their potential capacity is or how they're expanding in the state? And do they?
That's a great question. And you're the only elected official in the PG&E service area asking that question, sir. But I am going to punt to somebody else because I don't have an answer. I'm looking at Willie, who's turned away from you at the moment.
So I think, Director Blazer, your question is if we do all this infrastructure with water and wastewater, will we have the energy facilities to support this type of development? That's a great question. I know Kevin Mallon has had discussions with PG&E directly related to that. I don't know the exact answer, but I do know that the answer is going to include the word challenge or challenging, but it's something we're looking at. And I think this isn't the only rural community in the state that has that challenge. But that will be something to put into the equation or factor in the equation on, all of this work that we're partnering. So
maybe they'll be part of the non-binding agreement.
I don't think that, honestly, I don't think that's part of the equation at the time, but I think it's a conversation that has to happen just generally throughout the county, because that issue isn't just in Wheatland or related to this line. That issue is throughout, the rest of the county. In particular, you looked at, $35 million investment this agency is making in Oregon House. And so, we didn't have a major challenge getting power there, but, there are challenges with just simple developments like that. So it's not just related to this work. I think it's a countywide issue.
Well, we had a small, simple development at Costco. They pushed us out, 3 months, I think, because they couldn't get power. And that's pretty typical. Anyway, I just thought that should be part of the conversation.
Through the chair. What we have to do today is to address the two items. And I think that the second item, which is prepare the initial conceptual funding, where these questions can be answered fully rather than, doing that right now. And I recommend that we, the first item I understand is approve a $5 million loan From the water agency.
It's not
Not
loan,
a loan.
expenditure.
Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
loan.
Well.
Yeah.
That's the first one, is to consider the loan.
No.
No?
No.
There's
No.
two, just to clarify, there's two parts. One is it's
Okay.
going to cost us, this isn't a loan, this is a expense for Yuba Water. Is about $5 million to get us to bid ready. And that's paying
Okay.
for Mark, paying for Simon. I've asked them to work for free already. They said no. There might be some property that OPUD needs. There's final engineering.
Okay.
It's things like that. And then actually, we're having a construction cost estimate done to review the phase one. So it's $5 million that we're going to put in the budget and we're paying for. And then the second part is we're just asking for kind of a thumbs up. Yes, keep going on coming up with the interim financing plan.
Okay.
And one thing I just want to add about that, the $50 million loan, this project includes protecting our groundwater, and the whole project includes a water line as well. And so it's treated water for the folks in the South County, drinking water. And on the on the groundwater end of it, remember that the vast majority, in fact, all of our municipal areas, they rely on groundwater for their drinking water. So there's a direct link to we don't do development, we're not supporting development, but we do support water.
So the first motion you're looking for is the approval of.
I would say you could do it as one motion if you wanted to approve the $5 million expenditure or budget for expenditures to get this project to bid ready and to keep working on the concept of a $50 million loan.
So moved.
Second.
Can I ask one more question before we vote on it? Back of the envelope math, we have $15 million that got spent. We have two gentlemen here, but that would be like 100 engineers at 100 or at $15,000, $150,000 a year for $15 million. It was a total of 15 for the design, right?
Right. And
so I'm just curious, you said part of it is also being applied though for acquisition of land. So it's not all that went for service of engineering. So can you give me a little bit of an idea of how that 15 million was spent?
Okay, the 15 million was spent on design and engineering. And design, engineering, and project management by GEI. And so we have agreements with Wheatland, and we have an agreement with all OPUD to pay for their engineering firms, their engineers, to do the design on both phase one and phase two, and work together and everything it takes to get a project like this to bid ready. I mean, to get it to the point where it's designed. I do want to point out that in that 15 million was actually paid out. Olivehurst and Wheatland have actually taken part of that on as a loan. It's not the majority of it, but there at one point we said, okay, we'll keep going forward, but we'll pay for half, but you take half as a loan. So there is some money. I just wanted to acknowledge that they have agreed to pay that.
Okay.
So that was for the first 15 million. It's the next 5 million. There's always a little bit more engineering to do to make sure that everything works together. It's paying for the construction cost estimates. It's paying for GEI. It's paying for NHA. It's, I'm going to get off my head really quickly, but in order to expand, to handle this capacity, Olivehurst is going to need to acquire more land for settling ponds. Got that right?
Okay.
Pump station.
All right.
So it includes
All the question,
So I'm assuming that, to follow up on Seth's question, is the committee that we have was on it, Andy and Wayne and Gary, you guys review all that stuff, the engineering costs and everything.
They saw a complete workup of how we got to the $129,142,000. Also a listing, and I'm happy to share it with the whole board, a listing of the estimate to come up with the $5 million.
Yeah, so I have one more follow-up question. Just so I can kind of wrap my mind around this. This will handle all of Wheatland currently,
Yes?
all of Bill Air Force Base currently, and no? So that would be separate. So this will handle all of Wheatland currently plus 5,500 additional units.
Yes.
Okay.
And all of OPUD,
And currently with all.
currently OPUD
Yeah.
customers, yeah.
Yeah, and so when it expands into Beal, and hopefully we'll get that $10 million grant for that, it can be expanded to handle Beal and Linda potentially.
Right.
So we'll have one wastewater treatment facility in the whole county.
Or one wastewater treatment authority. that
yeah.
Probably will be operating a couple of wastewater treatment plants and all of those in Linda.
All right.
Trying to narrow down the scope of this.
Is there any public comment? Rennick?
So I just had one question. Does this affect the capacity that we have for Plumas Lake? So are we doing like a trade-off where we have OPUD as capacity for this amount already for Plumas Lake? And then we're going to add Wheatland to it, so they're going to be competing against each other for development?
I'm trying to narrow this down to see, we have two items here, and the second item, I think, would answer your question if we start discussing that, but we could be here all day.
Okay. That's just that's the only thing is that.
No, all
let's
we're
get an answer.
talking about is the $5 million motion at this point.
I think we're talking about the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, I'd like that. I'd like to hear your answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a key question. Good job. We talked about that this issue of if you're evidencing the collateral in terms of capacity, is it first come, first served basis? Do you actually own the capacity and nobody can use it? That goes to this question, are we competing against Plumas Lake or are we not? And that really depends on how we set up the collateral for the loan, if you will. Right now, 1.19 MGD, assuming I got the right number, James. No one is slapping my paw and I'm nodding their heads. I feel better. You divide that by 250 gallons per person per day, per EDU, and you come up with a really large number. I'm the ground a limb here. It's at least 4,000 new dwelling units. Okay, that's a big number. And from that perspective, I would say for the next few years, it's unlikely there would be competition between Plumas Lake and, for example, AKT and growth in the Wheatland area. In the long run, God willing, with the growth that's potential here with Beal and everything else, that, whether it's 4,000 new dwelling units or some other number, because my math is wrong, it's not going to be enough. If things go the way you want, it's not going to be enough. You're either building that parallel transmission capacity line, you're improving the OPUD treatment plant. But my guess is, my speculation is that there's enough surplus capacity now to put this gentleman's question off a number of years before real competition starts to take place. We have some time for let's put it this way. If 4,000 new homes are built in Plumas Lake and Wheatland in the next 10 years, I think certainly the pro-development group in this county would be really happy to have that kind of problem. So that's my speculative answer as best I can right now. That help you at all? Help you?
I'm going to add to the response and say, I think we have a very valid public comment here, and I think because of the breadth of the discussion, we should answer it thoroughly. Not only is but Mark said this question would be put off, but I think it's probably when you look at it economically, it's a good problem to have. You're competing, right? You're competing. That means there are dollars coming to the table. Right now, one of the primary topics we're talking about is a failed non-modern water system or wastewater treatment plant in Wheatland. What this project would result in is a modern expansion and modernization of OPUD's more modern facility. And let's say 10 or 20 years, we're competing with OPUD capacity and or a combination of OPUD and Linda capacity. We as a county as a whole are investing in modernizing modern systems. And I think we need to factor that into that equation when we answer Rennick's question is we're creating competition for a viable wastewater treatment system versus an outdated wastewater treatment system that needs complete replacement at $250 million. So that needs to be factored into the equation as well.
Oh, I think it's a good thing. I'm just trying to answer these questions. So I think the short answer is when we run into a problem, the 50 million will be repaid and then we'll loan them another 50 million to expand.
Well, and through the chair, just to add to that, and obviously we don't know what the capacity and connection fee situation will look like on the Wheatland side of the system, but certainly as growth continues in Plumas Lake, those houses are paying capacity fees to OPUD to expand their wastewater treatment plant. And so as that development's happening, you're getting funding from that building to do continued expansion of the system. And so it's not like you make this investment and then there's a wall and there's no more money coming in to fund future investment. So as development happens, that money continues to come in to fund future investment.
All right.
One last comment.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Terry for the presentation. I think it's always tough bringing a presentation midstream, not complete. But I think that was the intent of today's discussion was, hey, board, you asked us to go work on this. We've made a lot of progress. We're asking you, should we continue to work on it? And we don't have all the answers for you today. You heard Mark's presentation where he said, look, this is all conceptual. And what we're trying to do is gather your thoughts and comments. So the next time we come back, we will have these answers more solidified. Really, the question we have for you today is, should we continue to work on this? So I want to be clear that today's presentation wasn't intended to be all knowing or answering all this. It's more, should we continue to work and gather these answers?
Any other questions?
I'll make one final, it looks like Dane wants to talk to, but
Okay.
while I have the mic here, I'll just comment that I think our staff, Terry and Creighton and Jackie, and then as well as the Wheatland staff and OPUD staff, and this is an incredibly difficult project with a lot of moving pieces, and you should all be proud of getting it this far, and you know, I'm happy to see you stick to it and see this thing through to the end. So thank you.
Chair, if I may?
Yes.
To further address the gentleman's comment about competition between Lake and Wheatland for capacity, both agencies, Wheatland and OPUD, recognize that potential. And in our deal points for our 4 agreements that the 2 agencies will join into for the operations, the capacity purchase and repayment, and several other things, have acknowledged that. And so in those draft deal points, there's a mechanism by which we check in annually about what the capacity is, what's been used, and projections into the near future, so that neither agency is caught off guard in that predicament with not enough capacity to serve the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions, comments from the public or the board? I have a question now for Andrew. Motion's been made and seconded, but the person that made the motion has left the room. Can we still vote on it?
Yeah, it'll be marked as absent.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you. Motion passes. Managers report.
All right, so 2 weeks ago, I let you know that it's pretty rare that we have an average hydrology year, an average water year, and we're having one. And in an average year, we fill Bullard's Reservoir. And Bullard's peaked out yesterday at full, and will basically be at full for the next several weeks as we manage the snow melt. That's all good news for water supply and power generation. I want to thank the staff for diligently monitoring the snow melt, and it's been a nice kind of mellow snow melt. It hasn't been super hot, so it hasn't come all in one big wave. We're currently managing the Colgate units at full load to manage that flow. And I did mention 2 weeks ago that we likely wouldn't spill, and we aren't spilling technically through the spill gates, but we did open the low level outlet yesterday to relieve a little bit of inflow. And we'll close that over the next couple of days. So we did get a little bit more snow melt than we thought we would. So technically we're not spilling, but we're actually releasing water and not generating with it, just slightly, probably for 3 to 4 days this year. We have numbers here from our March generation. I will just say, I'll summarize it this way. We're slightly above forecast. So we have a little bit more generation than we forecast because we had a decent water year. Some of the products we sell were slightly below market, like the overall Cal ISO day-ahead price was slightly below, but the other products like RA, renewable energy credits, and carbon-free are slightly above. So our total revenue for March was $15.7 million. We're currently in the annual outage for Narrows 2, as I reported 2 weeks ago. That's scheduled to be complete by the end of the month, and all is going well. I was out there last Monday just checking on the crew, and they were doing some extensive generator testing, electrical testing on the generator. And as I understand it, the generator is generally in good health. They didn't find any red flags or issues that needed immediate repair. Narrows 2 is out of service, and Narrows 1 is in service and operating well. There's no major weather or heat events in the near-term forecast, which is good for managing the snowmelt and the elevation at New Bullards Bar. And the human resources side, we've hired a new senior HR analyst, Nicole Moe. Nicole comes to us from the city of Marysville, where she worked as the city clerk, assistant to the city manager, and HR manager. And Nicole begins her employment with the agency on June 10th. In the government relations side, Congressman LaMalfa's office recently disclosed his community project funding requests for the fiscal year 2025 appropriations process. And our request for $3.361 million to support the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers completion of the water control manual updates for New Bullards Bar and Orville was included. This is a positive development as Congress continues its process to develop fiscal year 25 appropriations measures. The other members of Yuba County's delegations have not yet announced their decisions on requests. In communications and community update, the Appeal Democrat shared our press release after the board's last meeting with the grants and our annual dam safety update. That release was also shared in the Aqua newsletter. The most recent of our sponsored news and review articles hit the streets, featuring Sammy Nall talking about how residents can stay informed about their flood risk. The Appeal also gave us a shout out for our sponsorship of last week's Kiwanis Fishing Derby. Dee Dee Cordell gave a presentation to the Wheatland Lions Club, and upcoming sponsorships include the Peachtree Junior Golf Academy and the United Way Better Together Golf Tournament. And our next board meetings on June 4th include a regular board meeting and an ABP meeting.
Thank you. Director's reports. Wayne?
I attended one day of the Aqua concert conference. It wasn't a concert. It was a conference. I think it was very enlightening and a good continuation of my education on California water, and kind of a reminder of how much I have left to learn. And I think the highlight for me was a session that our general manager spoke in, and it was a discussion by 4 general managers, and obviously 4 very bright people, and was a very enjoyable hour just to listen to them talk about water in California. So enjoyable and educational. So.
Great. Gary?
I was at Aqua last week as well. It was great to see Director Bishop there. And just for the other directors, if you're interested in the fall conference, I know it's the week after Thanksgiving, so you can put that on your calendar now. Appreciate the agency's sponsorship of the 100th annual Wheatland Pet Parade. Myself and my dog Gerald really enjoyed walking in that this year. It was my first time actually participating in it. Usually I'm there just watching. And the 150th birthday celebration for Wheatland was also Saturday, went great, as was an amazing air show at Beale Air Force Base. For those who didn't make it, they had almost 600 cars there, in addition to a lot of planes out on the runway and some food, some entertainment. It was a tremendous event. I think I forget the number, but maybe like 5,000 plus people attended. So it was great. So thank you.
Thank you. Andy? Nothing? Don?
No, I actually don't have much. Some of us did attend the 175th anniversary of the Masonic Lodge in Marysville. The next step would be the 175th anniversary of the city of Marysville, which is about 6 months out. And the Peach Festival is coming up in July. That's about it.
Seth?
In the interest of brevity, no report.
Well, I don't have much either, but I will thank the agency for having a booth at the Be Prepared Fair in Brownsville. It's always great that we show up and support the community. It's a big turnout. I did an extensive interview with Fox 40 on our mastication project. However, it was completely cut and they didn't put me on the phone. And that's it. So meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com. In the heart of Yuba County's wine country lies a quiet estate, surrounded by tall pines, a lake with waterfowl and fish, and room to get married. Share your vows with your family and friends in a special place, in a memorable way.
It turned out to be everything I thought it would be and more.
Frenchtown Inn, just 38 minutes from Marysville, a world away from the usual.
Smile for me.
Yes, I heard this song. That's literally the song.
Hi, I'm Neil Goforth of Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties. Caring for elders or even yourself has challenges. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties can help you address today's issues and plan for tomorrow with in-home and specialized care for you or your family members. Call us at 530-749-8800. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties.